Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this year's Earth Day event. I am so pleased to have with us Eugene Cook, who is just an amazing person and one of my favorite people, actually. And so I just want to, for anybody who doesn't know all the amazing work that Eugene is up to, I'll just go ahead and read his bio and then we will get to know him better. Eugene Cook is an American-born father of four, descended from indigenous farmers and African refugees. His unique perspective is based on 20 years of growing food in urban areas, as well as work study abroad in Africa, Jamaica, and Haiti. He is a founding member of Grow Where You Are, a collective, dynamic, full-service social enterprise in the field of local food systems. Grow Where You Are partners with organizations and individuals to bring food abundance to communities who value real food. They design, install, and maintain multiple public and private spaces where food is produced using organic and natural principles. They have trained residents in this dynamic form of urban agriculture for over 10 years. They partner with organizations, institutions, and individuals to plant fruit orchards, develop farms, and assist in ecological restoration in areas that enhance the health, economics, and environmental benefits by creating local food abundance systems. Wow, my goodness. I mean, I had never even heard of local food abundance systems, so that's just such a inspiring concept for me. Um, so thank you so much, Eugene, for being a part of this. I'm sure that everybody is really going to be able to benefit from all your wisdom and expertise. So,
Thank you, Brenda.
yes,
It's
yes.
beautiful to be here, and it's great to be a part of what Afro-Vegan Society is doing. What y'all have been doing for so long is really productive and beneficial for everybody who tunes in and everyone who gets touched, because we're in a transformation time, and most of it has to do with how we consume.
Yes, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you first, was there a moment for you when you realized that farming was the work that you needed to be doing at this time?
Mm, maybe not a moment, but probably a season. I became a father for the first time 21 years ago. My oldest son, Kush, is 21. And we were in Pomona, California at the time, and we had a small house that we were renting that had a small backyard. And as soon as Samantha and I knew that we were expecting a child, I went right in the backyard and started really planting a garden. We had already planted a few fruit trees up to that point, but when we really started growing the food in preparation for this child, it was the people in the surrounding community that let me know that this was worthwhile and beneficial, and they wanted to learn it, and that maybe I could teach them. And I never saw myself in that capacity, especially at that point. I was more a visual artist. I was a practicing visual artist. I had gone to school for visual art, and but creating the garden spaces was a way of creating artwork that we could walk through and that was functional and that produced food. And so it was a few years after that, the hard times that came right after Kush was born, um, with decisions that I was making, because I was very undecided about what path to take, becoming a young father in America. And as a Black man, really knowing that I wanted to have autonomy and to assert my own vision into the world, and also be able to provide for my family. And those things seemed very incongruent. I couldn't seem to make them come together, especially in an expensive place like California. And I began working with some nonprofit organizations doing gardening programs. And then I met my mentor, a gentleman by the name of Adonijah, in South Central Los Angeles at Crenshaw High School. And what he was doing wasn't what I would call farming specifically, but he was doing something called food forestry. And he was creating these subtropical food forests inside of small spaces, 3/4 of an acre, half an acre, an eighth of an acre. And I started studying under him for about 5 years, and my life transformed. And he implanted in me the importance of a plant-based diet, the importance of a high fruit diet, the importance of eating locally, eating seasonally. None of these things were things that I was really thinking that much about. And his level of health and vibrancy impacted me tremendously. And that's when that season of about 3 to 4 years really shifted my whole life direction.
Wow. Okay. That story is new to me, so I think I'm going to be learning some things with the audience. We'll be learning together.
Mm-hmm,
Thank you so
mm-hmm,
much for that. So,
mm-hmm.
and I'm glad that you're talking about sovereignty and autonomy, because my next question is, what does it mean for Black people to have food sovereignty, and what would that look like?
Mm. We're at such an interesting time, Brenda. As you and I talked before the recording about the state of the time and the temperature and the pulse right now, and throughout all of America, we have just witnessed a police officer be convicted of murder. And I remember coming home in 1992. I was in California. I was going to college. I was living with my folks, and I came home, and they had just acquitted the police officers that had beaten Rodney King. And at that time, one of my good friends, he and his wife and young child were living in Compton. And so I knew I had to get down there. And I got into Compton, and, the whole area was burned, stores were looted, uh, police were everywhere, National Guard was out. Serious situation, serious situation. And one of the places that I went to, we were reasoning with the family in an apartment complex, and people had diapers, and had went out and gotten the things that they knew they were going to need during this time, since the stores were being looted and people knew they weren't going to be able to get toilet paper and all that kind of stuff. They went out and they got it. So people had stacks of diapers and toilet paper in their households. And I opened up the refrigerator, and they had a 64-ounce jug of malt liquor.
Oh.
Now, up until this time in the late 80s, early 90s, they had just started to really promote the 40 ounce of malt liquor. They were promoting it through rap music. Ice Cube was doing St. Ides commercials, and other people were advertising Old English 800, and it was 40 ounces. Now, 40 ounces of liquid is a lot of liquid to drink, but 40 ounces of malt liquor is a lot.
Mm.
But at the time of the Los Angeles riots, 64 ounces, apple cider jugs of malt liquor were released. And I've never seen that before or since.
Mm.
And the whole refrigerator was full of these apple cider jugs of malt liquor. And I said, when the hell did they start releasing 64-ounce jugs of malt liquor? How was it already bottled, labeled, and ready to be distributed into the community? When did we go from 40 ounces to 64 ounces? This is not some back neighborhood project. This is a project, because they
Mm-hmm.
knew once you start pumping that malt liquor into the society, it's going to dumb them down, slow them down. They'll be easier to control, less clear in their thinking. So when we talk about food systems, local food systems, food sovereignty, it's very key for us to understand, Brenda, that the only way Black people are going to be food sovereign is if our food is coming locally. Because if our food has to come from long distances and has to be trucked in, they at any moment have shown that they can shut these streets down with tanks and National Guard and say there's no food coming in and no food coming out. There's not any gas coming in. We're not going to, and they just quarantine this whole situation off, and it'll look like Escape from New York.
Mm.
And this is what's happening, is that local food systems are the beginning part of food sovereignty. And what it really does look like, I mean, it's going to take a lot of facets and a lot of coordination. What we do have in place right now is we have Black families who have had land, even if it's just a small house, in areas for 20 and 30 years. Now, that's even being eroded because of what we're seeing happen with the financial crisis. But for those of us whose families still have land, we need to be planting fruit trees. They say the best time to plant a fruit tree was 30 years ago. And the next best time is right now. So we need to be planting fruit systems, because the fruit trees, the berries, the vines, these are systems that stay in the ground for 30 plus years. They require less maintenance than a vegetable garden. They're permanent. The nutrition value is higher. The yield is higher. So the beginning to local food sovereignty is by planting fruit trees and subtropical fruit systems or fruit orchards in whatever area you can be in. The next thing is to make sure that we have our perennial herbs, because in these times of conflict, disease, pathogens, we are going to need to be able to heal ourselves. Because again, you talking about somebody who lived through the 92 riots. I saw when they closed the supermarkets and closed the convenience stores, and then they closed the pharmacies, people had to fend for themselves. And if you didn't have any plants that could heal you growing in your local area, then all of the issues get exacerbated. So we want to make sure we're planting medicinal and culinary herbs close to us. And that could mean my cousin has a backyard and we're doing herbs over here. Grandmama has a backyard, we're doing fruits over here. You know what I mean? I got a backyard, or I got pots, I can do some vegetables on my balcony or whatever. But it means, I mean, the name of the company is Grow Where You Are. And the reason is because wherever we are, there's something that we can grow. So that's the beginning of the food sovereignty, is making sure that we have our medicines and our foods close to us.
Wow. And, you talking about starting off planting fruit trees. I mean, you're talking about planting trees, which can only benefit not only us, but like the whole planet itself. I mean, why is this not just a no-brainer for folks?
As you know, it's just like the lifestyle that we've chosen, a plant-based lifestyle. That's a no-brainer too. It's a matter of having that information suppressed. There's an amazing woman by the name of Wangari Maathai. She's the first Black woman, African woman, to win the Nobel Peace Prize. She had a movement called the Green Belt Movement, and they planted over 500 million trees. But this is a woman who was imprisoned by the Kenyan government, beaten by the Kenyan police. This African woman here, she gets a Nobel Peace Prize, and she's celebrated in Western countries, but in her own country of Kenya, they abused her, they beat her, they separated her from her family. And it was her and the African women that went around planting millions and millions of fruit trees, because they noticed, after she studied abroad and came back to East Africa, she noticed that the rivers that used to flow through her village area had dried up because the trees had been taken away. And when the trees get taken away, the rivers dry up, because it's the leaf of the trees that gather the condensation that pull the rain down. So, as you said, this should be a no-brainer. And people get celebrated for it, but they don't often get funded for it.
Oh, I believe that 1000%. I am just learning so much about what's funded and what's not. And
Yeah.
it never turns out to look like our work. So,
And so there's been the difference between something that makes perfect sense. It can make perfect sense, and you can even get an award for it, but that don't mean anyone's going to fund you. And really, to go and plant millions of trees takes funding.
oh yes, absolutely. So, I mean, there's a whole history of farmland property being taken away from Black folks that goes back 100 plus years. What how do you think, or how do you feel like having so few Black farms, and then even especially in urban areas? I mean, because there's like very little in terms of the local food system that folks can have access to in urban areas. How do you think that disadvantages our community?
Hmm. I mean, it's obvious, because we then turn to what is accessible and inexpensive, and that is fast food, and it's food that is salt, fat, and sugar. The three most addictive uh, sources that we can have, because our body was never designed to be able to find salt, fat, and sugar in high quantities in nature. You don't find that. And so once the body gets it, it wants it. You know what I mean? Like when I get some salty stuff, I want more of it. When I get some sweet stuff, I want more of it. And so the addiction that is planted in the food that is available is really where is our biggest disadvantage. Our biggest disadvantage is having people, companies, corporations preying on our genetic makeup. So if we don't have local food systems present to counter that, then we're in a hard situation, because not only do we not grow our own food, we don't even own our own stores.
Oh yeah.
And this is by design. So if we can't even decide what to stock on the shelves, and I think it's much more difficult to own a store, open up a business, and all of that, hire employees, than it is to plant food.
I can
but we
attest
have
to
been,
that.
you know,
Testify.
so
Yes.
we have to be encouraging of our youth, and the one of the many ways is through opportunities like this to actually have people talk and hear from those of us who do this work in real time.
So, in terms of Black farming, what are some of the major challenges right now that Black farmers are facing?
So I think we want to be clear that there's different groups of Black farmers. There are Black farmers like the ones who are in the Pickford law case against the USDA, who are between 65 and 85 years old and have had their land stolen from them and are behind on taxes and have all types of debt that the USDA coerced them into. They have one set of challenges. Their set of challenges is just trying to hold on to a piece of land to give over to children who are already in their 50s and don't want to farm
Mm,
and clear their debt. That's their main focus. They can't even think about producing for Black people anymore. These are the people who got Dr. King out of jail.
mm.
These are the people who got the civil rights activists out of jail by putting their land up as collateral to get them out of jail. So
Wow.
that's one group. Then you got the other group of Black farmers like myself in our 30s to 50 years old trying to grow food in the hood, being suppressed and oppressed by nonprofit organization executive directors who are just kind of job skipping their way through the food system.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give a damn about who has, don't even shop at the farmers markets. I mean, these people here in Atlanta will blow your mind, Brenda. These white women come up in here and they get themselves these jobs in these organizations and say that they really care about local food. You don't even see them at the farmers market shopping. And then
Wow.
when they leave that one executive director position to go to another executive director position, suddenly they don't care about the food system at all anymore. They go on to whatever it is that they're interested in. They're being paid to be interested in now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's us as Black farmers who are up against that. Then there's the ones just below us, the 20-year-olds who have been watching all the documentaries, who are already vegan, who are already plant-based, who are already living a certain lifestyle, who are already interested in cannabis and all types of different things. And they looking at us saying, well, do you have a job for me?
Mm.
Do you have a job for me? 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 And we should rightfully be in a position to tell them yes, but we don't. Because what it takes to create employment opportunities is the kind of investment that has just been sucked out of all entrepreneurial communities, so especially Black communities. So now, again, I think it's up to us to really apply direct pressure to
Mm.
any people who we know have resources, who say they're about the food system, who say they're about animal rights. Look, I know a woman who called me from an animal rights organization. She make 120 some odd $1,000 a year. I asked her, how much do you make a year? And she said, I don't want to say. I said, why don't you want to say? You're an executive director of an animal rights organization. Why don't you want to say? It's public knowledge. Why don't you
Mm.
want to say? And she said, I just don't feel comfortable. I said, okay, let me tell you something. If I made $120,000 a year as an urban farmer, I would have I would have it embroidered on the back of my children's
Mm.
clothes. Everywhere they went, it would say, my father is an organic urban farmer and he makes $120,000 a year. So if you don't want people to know, why you don't want people to know? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're not proud. And if you're not proud, then let go of the money or go do something else.
Right.
Because there's somebody who could utilize that money in a way that would transform society, transform the hood, transform families. I think
I
we're in a different place right now, Brenda. It's time for us, you and I, Giovanna, all of
Mm-hmm.
us to move in a new way with more power, more authority.
Yeah, I recently was involved in a conversation with somebody who is privy to the amount of money, the numbers that are getting, like put into these other types of, these organizations and the type of work that they're doing. And I'm thinking like, how do you justify that? That is it is just mind blowing to me when you have people on the ground, like doing real substantial, like actual food system shifting work. And these are people that are talking about we have to change the food system and this and that. But like you have people right now who are on the ground doing this like groundbreaking work. that's actually going to shift food culture itself. And it's just not appreciated, and it's not valued, and it's not funded, and it's just a travesty. It really is just an absolute travesty. I don't understand it. I really
And
don't.
you shouldn't. If the moment you understand it, there's something wrong.
Mm,
So, you keep asking those questions. Do they have answers for you about how they justify that?
no, no. I mean, everybody is just like nodding and, yeah, it's terrible. It's really terrible,
Well, good.
Like, I get it,
That's the
Brenda.
beginning of the
I get it.
conversation then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just wait a minute, because you're bringing things up to them that it's going to take a while for them to digest. But once it digests, they're going to go to the person that first triggered the idea to them. So what that means is this is our time to prepare. So when they
Mhm.
do come and say, look, Brenda, we got $1 million for you, you can activate it and put it in motion and generate results. It's really about being able to do that, because the money is coming.
Okay.
The
Well,
money is coming.
all right. That's what I
Oh
like to
yeah.
hear.
Oh, it's guaranteed. It's guaranteed. Otherwise, the country gonna turn inside out.
Wow. And that might be due too. Um, so you were mentioning the youth, and that, I've
Mm.
had my own personal experiences with building, just like on a much smaller scale, a community garden, and just seeing how young folks they gravitate towards that in a way that, like, even a lot of the seniors who I thought would be the ones who would gravitate because they have like a memory of, working the land and that kind of thing. And that did happen, but the first ones to come out were the young folks. And so I wanted to ask you, have you had experience with working with young folks, in doing your farming, and what was that like?
Oh yes, absolutely. As I shared with you, my first real teacher, my maternal grandparents were farmers in Oklahoma, indigenous European and African farmers, and so I was introduced to 80-acre large scale farming throughout my young life, by visiting them. So I was very familiar. My mother and father taught me how to garden around the house. My first real agricultural teacher, Adonijah, um, what we were doing was we're creating a food forestry system at Crenshaw High School. So it automatically had the youth component built into it. And since then, he's the one that instilled in me that forget the adults. He's like, these adults, even if they want to do it, they have too many pressures, too many addictions, too many sicknesses. You got to get in with the youth. And
Mm,
so we've always had a youth component to our work. Most recently, I just completed a fellowship with the Robert Wood Johnson Culture of Health Leaders Program. And in my third and final year, we did a strategic initiative called Growing Options. And Growing Options was to focus on youth 18 to 36 years old who have already been working in the food system to some degree, but needed and wanted a more comprehensive experience. So, kind of like a accelerator program, but more like a immersion program. So we taught them the growing system, let them work on 2 or 3 different farms, but then we took them to restaurants to learn which restaurants support local farmers. Took them to places like the Atlanta Botanical Garden so that they could see these other aspects of food and plant production that could put you in very different tax bracket. Um, Took them to the supply chain so that they could understand the supply chain. So for us, it's really been a matter of making sure that any of the youth that we work with have an understanding of the supply chain from the point of the seed all the way to the plate. And
mm,
that could be the plate in the restaurant or the plate in someone's house. And then at the end of that, where does that compost go? Does it go right back into the trash, into the waste stream, or can we somehow bring it back into the land? So that's really been what we've been about. Growing Options. We have a few videos on our Instagram page and on our Patreon page, and some information about that. We're always looking to do more of that. We had some support from Farm Sanctuary with that program as well, which has been great. We've had amazing support from A Well-Fed World with these programs. So the partnerships are good, and they need to deepen, because many of these organizations have been around for 10, 20 years, and
mm.
they're just now putting their toe in this kind of work.
Yeah. It's so important. I just got chills hearing about that program. I mean, that just sounds like absolutely amazing for anybody to have that deep of an understanding of the food system. I mean,
Yeah, and some of the people. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say I would love to come and be a part of it. I mean, there's certain aspects of the food system that
You
I'm
can,
still, like a little bit kind of fuzzy about. So this
and
sounds,
by design.
yeah.
That's all by design. They don't want us to see certain things
Mm,
because once you see it, it becomes a different. You can start to target your energy at a particular place in the food system that you think you can make the most change, where your skill set will work. And that was really what we were sharing with them, is that whatever skill set you have, we had young women in there who are fashion designers. We had brothers in there that worked in communications. We said, look, it don't matter, every one of your skills can fit into the food system, or
mm,
let me say, not even just the food system, but agricultural system. Because housing, clothing, fuel, food, it's all agricultural. Furniture, that's all
yeah.
agricultural, right? Fibers, carpets, this is all agriculture.
Yeah.
So we had to expand that and say, okay, now find out. We don't expect everybody to be a farmer, but if you want to be good in fashion, how much better would it be if you understood the farmers that are farming hemp and cotton? If you want to be good in the restaurant industry, how much better would it be if you understand the farmers who are saving seeds and rare varieties and heirloom varieties?
Mm,
You want to be in the transportation network. You got to understand what foods should we be transporting and what foods shouldn't we be transporting. What is good for transporting and what's not good for transporting.
mm,
So we have some people that have not necessarily graduated, because it's an ongoing. Whenever we get funding from other sources, we do another uh, chapter of the Growing Options program. Um, but we've had people who've kind of matriculated through, who are now working at farms, who are working at nurseries, who are working at farmers markets, and we're still in direct contact with them, and their whole life has changed
mm.
because now they're meeting different people, going different places, eating different foods, which are awakening different parts of their brain. It's amazing. It's really
That
amazing.
sounds amazing. Wow. And this is obviously something that can be reproduced in other places, so it doesn't have to just stay local, you
No,
know.
ma'am. We have two different curriculums that we developed. We developed a curriculum with the Emory University Urban Health Initiative, and that curriculum is for youth from about 7 to 15, and that's called our New Power Generation. And it's basically the same curriculum, but for younger people. So we
Mm,
took them on trips to the supermarket so they could see how things were placed on the shelves directly at their eye level to attract them. We let them meet the produce manager at Whole Foods and take them in the back and show them what happens when the food comes in and what happens when it goes out. Of course, they were doing gardening. So the New Power Generation food system curriculum, we have that available. The Growing Options food system curriculum, of course, is more mature, and we're working on fleshing that out. We can always have any of these available, and we have members of our collective that are willing to travel to different areas to help, um, get people trained up so that they can do it.
mm.
It's really about creating the connections in your own local food system, because you're not supposed to be the one teaching it. You know what I mean? We would teach the part that we know, and then have a connection with somebody at a restaurant, have a connection with somebody at a supermarket, and let them teach the part that they know. We just get them
Yes,
there. You know what I mean?
absolutely. Wow, this is okay. So, I mean, honestly, I feel like this, first of all, this is like a class. You're like teaching a class, which, obviously I'm sure you're amazing at doing, being a
Thank you.
teacher. And so, I feel like this video needs to be one of the things that gets into the right hands and gets in front of the right people, as well as, the folks that are participating in this program obviously need to hear this information, but I think there are some other folks that need to hear this information as well.
And you're the perfect conduit for it, Brenda. Giovanna and I are often talking about your position. It's a very unique position because you were already active in this aspect of the movement by the time Giovanna and I even got introduced to it. Our head was down so far into the work of doing something really specific that we didn't even know this other world even existed. So
Hmm.
I'm eternally grateful for this opportunity. I don't say yes to doing interviews on the middle of the day on Wednesday for anybody. You know what I mean? Shoot, I be telling people, do you know how much stuff I got to do? I can't be. But when you
Oh.
said it, I said, okay, let's shift it and get it around, because to me, you're the right person to hear it, and
Mm.
that's the right. And then when you hear it, I already know it's gonna move. I already know it's gonna move. So yeah, things are tumultuous right now. Things are uncertain right now. But this is recorded. It needs to be recorded. It is on time. It's in the right hands. Do with it what you got to do with it. And I stand in solidarity with you wherever you are doing whatever you do, for
Thank
sure.
you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness. So where do we go? Um, so what advice would you have for somebody who is, who's watched this and they want to get involved in an urban farming initiative?
Mm. Yeah. First thing I would say is to start shop. If there's a farmer's market in your area, start shopping at the farmer's market in your area.
Mm,
The best way, as a farmer, one of the best ways that we like to see people get involved is by investing. And not everybody can invest in a business, but you can definitely shop with a business. So you go to your local farmers markets, go to 2 or 3 different ones, check them all out. Spend 2 months just going around to different farmers markets, different days, seeing which farmers show up at multiple markets, which farmers are only at one market, and shop with them. Shop with the farmers. Don't come with questions immediately, because again, we are we're oftentimes the source of people who are wanting to make documentaries, or people who are wanting to do school projects and research projects, and these people will connect with us and come and see us and never spend no money,
mm,
but want to
wow.
interview and want to do no. If you're interested in getting involved, you go shop with farmers and choose which farmers to shop with. If there are farmers that look like you, by all means shop with them. If there's people who are set up at a booth that look like you and you find out they're not the farmer, they're just somebody who's hired to be there, that's okay too. But find out after spending your money, then you get time to question and ask and talk. um, Secondly, look up gardens, community gardens. Churches often have community gardens. Schools often have community gardens. Obviously, things have changed a bit with the society right now, but just do some research on community gardens in your area and see if there's a place where you can go and rent a plot of your own and start to grow. And
Hmm.
when you start to grow, you're going to interface with the other people there who have a plot, and that'll start to broaden your community, broaden your access. If there's a botanical garden in your city, go and check it out. Spend time there, walk around, look around, see what's edible and what's not, what's ornamental, what's local and medicinal. And they'll have name tags. You do your research that way. um, and then I would say, after a few months of doing that and eating locally and feeling how you feel in your body when you eat local food, then start to see about volunteering on a farm. But
Mm.
if you have family and friends that have land, even if it's small pieces of land, say, hey, what plant or herbs do you make a list, or the friends, and say, okay, let's think about growing this over here, growing this here, and growing that here, and we'll piece it up. We'll split up on the money that it takes to invest in the project.
Huh.
We have a Patreon page on Patreon. Uh, Patreon, you can look at Grow Where You Are. We have a lot of instructional content there, depending on what level you invest in. And there's a lot of other folks that are doing similar work. You can check out Soulfire Farm. You can check out Bugs, the Black Urban Gardeners Network. There's different folks, especially on Instagram, that are doing the work, and that'll be inspirational. But more than that, you got to get out into your own local area. Shop at the farmers markets. Check out the botanical gardens. Check out the local community gardens, and then start where you can. Grow where you are.
Wow, that's so interesting because it's like you're saying jump out there, just like
It ain't gonna come to you. It's
yeah.
not gonna come to you. It's really not. And as you know, you did your community garden. If you weren't there in the community, it wasn't gonna happen.
Mhm.
Just people need to be able to walk by and see you there repeatedly. Because the first day they're not gonna stop. Second time they go, oh, you're still here. third time they go, wow, she must be serious. Okay, well,
Yes.
I'll be back. I'm gonna go home and change my shoes, and I'll come back. You know.
And that's exactly what happened. And I thought I did it wrong by just jumping out there. There was a plot of land that was available. We cleared it and we started. And I didn't know that that was like the right thing to do.
That's it. That's the magic. That's the magic ingredients. Starting.
Wow.
We got to start.
Oh my gosh, I could go on and on. You don't even know. But I know that you are just so engaged and so busy, and I'm really really thankful that you made the time for this. I truly am, and hopefully everybody watching understands, like, you don't just have hours to give away. So this is this is quite a treat,
And
and
none of
quite an
us do.
honor. Yeah,
Yeah, none
no,
of us. You see,
honestly.
it's about to get loud around here. So,
Uh-oh.
but let's see if we can schedule another one. You know what I mean? The way I
I
look
would
at it,
love that.
Earth Day is it's all month. You know, it's every month. So let's
Yes.
just figure out reasons for us to get together. If we need to create our own series or our own lesson plan or any of that kind of stuff, with Afro-Vegan Society, let's just figure it out. And again, ideal times are November through March are a lot more flexible for us,
Oh,
but
awesome.
we'll make time however we can. Let's continue to celebrate Earth Day and Earth Week every day, every week. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, thank you. And now my wheels are turning. So you will be hearing back from me about that. Can you tell us where people can find you one more time, and how they can support your work, especially?
Absolutely. Thank you for this, Brenda. This has been great. I hope it's been helpful for everybody who's tuned in. We are at growwhereyouare.farm, FARM, growwhereyouare.farm. That's a simple web page with not too much information, but it'll give you links to our Patreon page. Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com, grow where you are. And on Instagram, grow where you are, all spelled out. And and you can see us there and see what we're doing and keep in touch with us. This book is available both in digital format and in paper. So the link for that is in our bio on Instagram. It's full of pictures and a lot of good information. And I'm just super grateful to have time with you, Brenda, and we look forward to what's happening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eugene Cook from Grow Where You Are. And we will be continuing this conversation. All right. So, and thank you all for participating in our Earth Day event. And we'll see you at the next program.